My daughter-in-law cornered me at the grocery store and hissed, "Stop buying gifts for my children. You're not their real grandmother, you're just a lonely old hag desperate for attention." She grabbed the toys from my cart. My son was waiting in the car. I left my cart there. The next week, she found out those occasional babysitting favors I did meant I was legally entitled to grandparent visitation, and I just filed for it. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. I was standing in the toy aisle at Target, holding a Lego set that I knew Tyler would love. My grandson was turning 7 next week, and his twin sister now was turning 5. I'd been so excited about their birthday party that I'd probably gone a little overboard with the shopping. My cart was filled with toys, books, art supplies, stuffed animals, probably close to $200 worth of gifts. But they were my grandchildren. My only grandchildren. And after helping raise them for the past 3 years, I knew exactly what would make them smile. I was examining a dinosaur excavation kit when I heard a voice behind me. "Vivian, we need to talk." I turned around to see my daughter-in-law Jessica standing there, her arms crossed, her expression cold. "Oh, Jessica." I smiled, genuinely happy to see her even though our relationship had been strained lately. "I'm just picking up birthday gifts for the twins. I found the cute." "That's exactly what we need to talk about." Jessica stepped closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Stop buying gifts for my children." I blinked, confused. "What?" "But it's their birthday." "I don't care." Her eyes were hard. "You're not their real grandmother, Vivian. You need to stop acting like you are." The words hit me like a physical blow. "I don't understand. Marcus is my son, that makes Tyler and Nia my grandchildren. You're just a lonely old hag, desperate for attention." Jessica's voice was venomous. "Those are my children. I decide what they get and from whom. Not you." I felt tears starting to form. We were in the middle of Target and other shoppers were beginning to stare. "You're always trying to insert yourself into our lives," Jessica continued, her voice getting louder. "Always calling, always asking to see them, always buying them things to make yourself feel important. It's pathetic." Before I could respond, she reached into my cart and started grabbing the toys I'd selected, the Lego set, the art supplies, the stuffed animals. "Jessica, please," I whispered, mortified as more people turned to watch. "It's their birthday." "I don't care. They don't need gifts from some desperate old woman trying to buy their love." She was practically shouting now, and I could feel my face burning with humiliation. "God, you're embarrassing." She threw the last toy back into my cart with unnecessary force. "Always hovering, always in the way. Marcus and I are done with you inserting yourself into our family." "But I am family." "No, you're not. Not anymore. We're just tolerating you out of obligation. Those kids barely know you anyway. You're just that old lady who brings presents sometimes." She leaned in close, and I could smell her expensive perfume. "Stay away from my children. Stop calling. Stop visiting. Stop buying them things. Just stop existing in our lives." I heard footsteps and turned to see my son Marcus approaching from the store entrance. "Jessica, what's taking so long?" Then he saw me, saw my tears, saw the situation. His face showed discomfort, but not the anger or defense I desperately needed. "Mom," he said carefully, "maybe Jessica's right. Maybe you do come around too much. We're trying to raise our kids our way. We need space." I stared at him. This was my son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father died, the man I'd helped through college, through his wedding, through the births of his children. "Marcus?" My voice was barely audible. "You agree with this?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Just give us some space, Mom. Okay?" They walked away together, leaving me standing in the toy aisle with tears streaming down my face and a cart full of birthday presents I'd never get to give. I looked at the toys, looked at the other shoppers pretending not to stare. Then I walked away from the cart, left it right there in the middle of the aisle with all the carefully selected gifts still inside. I got in my car, sat in the parking lot and cried harder than I had since my husband Robert died 4 years ago. My name is Vivian Carter, and before I tell you about the legal petition that changed everything, you need to understand who I am, and how I got to that moment in Target. I'm 71 years old, born and raised in New Orleans, moved to Atlanta 40 years ago when my husband Robert got a job opportunity. We were both pharmacists, met in pharmacy school at Howard University, fell in love over organic chemistry study sessions, got married the week after graduation. We spent 35 years working together at the same hospital pharmacy. It was good work, steady work, meaningful work. We helped people, we made a decent living, we built a comfortable life. Marcus was our only child. We tried for years before he came along, and when he finally did, we poured everything into him. Robert was an amazing father, patient, kind, present. He coached Marcus's Little League team, helped with science projects, taught him to change a tire and balance a checkbook. Robert died 4 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden and devastating. He was only 67. I'd thrown myself into being a grandmother after that. Tyler and Mia became my world. They were 2 and 4 when Robert died, and loving them helped me survive the grief. When Jessica and Marcus asked me to help with childcare, I'd been grateful for the opportunity. It had started small. Mom, can you pick up Tyler from daycare today? We both have late meetings. Then it became regular. We need you Tuesday and Thursday this week. Then it became constant. 3 to 4 days a week, every week, for 3 years. I'd pick the kids up from school or daycare, bring them to my house, feed them dinner. I'd learn to make Tyler's favorite mac and cheese and Nae's favorite chicken nuggets exactly the way they liked them. I'd help with homework, play games, read stories, give baths. Sometimes they'd sleep over when Marcus and Jessica had work trips or events. I'd kept meticulous records of it all. It was the pharmacist in me. I'd spent 35 years documenting everything, double-checking doses, maintaining precise logs. I couldn't turn that off just because I'd retired. I had a calendar where I noted every day I watched the kids. I had text messages and emails from Jessica requesting childcare. I had photos of Tyler and Mia at my house, doing crafts, baking cookies, playing in the backyard. Looking back now, I realize I'd been more than a grandmother doing occasional favors. I'd been a primary caregiver, and in the state of Georgia that meant something. I drove home from Target in a daze, walked into my house, the house Robert and I had bought 40 years ago now feeling too big and too empty, and sat at my dining room table. I pulled out my calendar, the one where I documented every interaction with my grandchildren, 3 years of entries, Tyler's soccer practice, Nae's doctor appointments, school pickups, homework help, dinner, bedtime stories, overnight stays. I started counting, averaging 3 to 4 days per week for 3 years. Approximately 450 days of substantial childcare. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through text messages from Jessica. Vivian, can you get the kids Tuesday? Marcus and I have a work thing. Emergency meeting came up. Can you pick up Tyler and Mia and keep them until 8? We need you this weekend. Conference in Nashville, can the kids stay with you Friday through Sunday? Hundreds of messages. All requesting no. Expecting that I would provide childcare. I went to my computer and printed out emails. More of the same. Detailed requests, specific instructions, assumed availability. As I looked at 3 years of documentation spread across my dining room table, I remembered something my friend Margaret had mentioned months ago. Her daughter had gone through a custody battle, and Margaret had recommended a family law attorney who'd been excellent. A woman named Sharon Mitchell. I found Sharon's number and called before I could talk myself out of it. Mitchell Law Firm, how can I help you? My name is Vivian Carter. I need to speak with someone about grandparent rights. Sharon Mitchell's office was in a professional building in Buckhead. She was a black woman in her mid-50s, dressed in a sharp suit, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Carter, tell me what's happening. I explained everything. The 3 years of regular childcare, the sudden cutoff, the confrontation at Target, Jessica's cruel words, Marcus's refusal to defend me. Sharon listened carefully, taking notes. Do you have documentation of the childcare arrangement? Yes. I pulled out my folders, calendar entries for every day I watched them, text messages and emails requesting babysitting, photos of the children at my house. Sharon went through it all methodically. She spent 20 minutes just reading through my calendar entries. Mrs. Carter, how many days per week were you watching these children? 3 to 4 days, on average. Sometimes more if they had work trips. For how long? 3 years. Since Tyler was 4 and Nael was 2. Sharon sat back in her chair. That's not occasional babysitting, that's a substantial caregiving arrangement. I know. I loved doing it. They're my grandchildren, I understand. But from a legal perspective, this is significant. She pulled out a legal text and opened it to a marked page. In Georgia, grandparents can petition for visitation rights under certain circumstances. One of those circumstances is if there was a substantial existing relationship with the grandchildren. Can I really do that? Can I sue for the right to see them? It's not technically a lawsuit. It's a petition for court-ordered visitation. And yes, based on what you've shown me, I believe you have strong legal standing. Will it work? Sharon was quiet for a moment. I can't guarantee anything. Your son and daughter-in-law will fight it. They'll argue parental rights, their authority to decide who sees their children. But Mrs. Carter, you have 3 years of documentation. You have written requests from the parents for regular child care. You were a significant part of these children's lives, and that relationship was facilitated by the parents themselves. Georgia courts recognize that children have a right to maintain relationships with grandparents when those relationships are meaningful and in the child's best interest. What would I get if the court rules in my favor? Probably something like 1 weekend per month. Some holiday time, maybe a week or 2 in the summer. It varies case by case. I thought about Tyler and Nia, about reading bedtime stories, about teaching them to make cookies, about the way Nia would climb into my lap when she was tired and Tyler would show me his Lego creations with such pride. How long would this take? We file the petition, they get served, then usually mediation, and if that doesn't work, a hearing. Maybe 2 to 3 months total. Mrs. Carter, I need you to understand something. This will damage your relationship with your son, possibly permanently. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Marcus in Target, about how he'd looked away when I needed him, about Jessica's words, lonely old hag desperate for attention. I'm prepared. File it. Sharon worked fast. Within a week she'd prepared the petition for grandparent visitation rights for Fulton County Family Court. The petition was thorough and devastating. It detailed 3 years of regular child care, 3 to 4 days per week. It included exhibits, copies of Jessica's text messages and emails requesting babysitting, pages from my calendar, photos of the children at my house. It calculated that I'd provided approximately 450 days of substantial childcare over 3 years. It noted the sudden termination of contact with no reasonable explanation. It requested monthly visitation, holiday access, and summer visitation time. 1 week after the Target incident, a process server showed up at Marcus and Jessica's house with the legal documents. I wasn't there, of course, but Marcus told me later what happened. Jessica had answered the door Saturday morning, expecting a package delivery. Instead, she was handed legal papers. She'd read the first page and started screaming. She's suing us? For grandparent rights? She can't do this. Marcus had come to see what was wrong. He'd read through the petition, seen the exhibits, copies of Jessica's own texts and emails, my calendar documentation, the photos. His face had gone pale. Mom's actually suing us for the right to see Tyler and Nia? This is insane, Jessica had yelled. We're the parents. We get to decide who sees our children. Apparently not if we've been using Grandma as regular childcare for 3 years, Marcus had said quietly, looking at the documentation. Jess, did you see all these exhibits? Mom kept records of everything. I don't care. She can't force us to let her see them, but the petition said otherwise. And it was very, very official. Jessica called her lawyer friend Amanda within an hour. I found out about this conversation later during the discovery process. Amanda, Marcus's mother is suing us for grandparent visitation rights. Can she do that? Amanda was a corporate lawyer, not a family law specialist, but she knew enough. In Georgia, yes, if she can prove a substantial prior relationship. Did she babysit regularly? Well, yes, but just occasionally when we needed help. How occasionally? Maybe 3 times a week for a few years. But that was just family helping out. Jessica, that's not occasional, that's regular childcare. Did you put any of these requests in writing? I might have texted or emailed her sometimes. Then she has documentation. Georgia courts can grant grandparent visitation in these circumstances, especially if you used her as consistent childcare then cut her off. So what do we do? Get a family law attorney. A good one. And be prepared. You might lose. Jessica had hired Martin Green, an expensive family law attorney who specialized in protecting parental rights. His first call to Sharon had been aggressive. Miss Mitchell, your client needs to withdraw this petition. My clients have an absolute right to determine who has access to their children. Sharon's response had been calm and professional. Mr. Green, your clients used Mrs. Carter as regular childcare for 3 years. They created and facilitated a substantial relationship with the grandchildren. Georgia law is very clear on this. We'll fight this. I expected you would. See you in mediation. The first step was court-ordered mediation scheduled for 6 weeks after the petition was filed. The mediator was Denise Washington, a retired family court judge in her 60s with a reputation for being fair but tough. I sat on one side of the conference table with Sharon. Marcus and Jessica sat on the other side with Martin Green. It was the first time I'd seen my son since Target. He looked tired, stressed. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Jessica looked furious. We're here to see if we can reach an agreement about grandparent visitation without going to trial, Denise began. Mrs. Carter, can you explain what you're seeking? I took a deep breath. I want to see my grandchildren. I helped raise them for 3 years and then I was suddenly cut off with no explanation. I'm asking for 1 weekend per month. Some holidays, maybe a week in the summer. Mrs. Carter was providing regular childcare. Correct? How often? Sharon answered. 3 to 4 days per week for 3 years. We have documentation. She slid the evidence across the table. My calendar, the text messages, the emails, the photos. Denise spent 15 minutes reviewing it all. Mrs. Carter was picking up the children from school or daycare multiple times per week. Sharon continued. She was providing meals, homework help, overnight care when needed. This went on consistently for 3 years. Denise looked at Jessica. Mrs. Carter, is this accurate? Vivian volunteered. That's not what I asked. Did she provide regular childcare as documented here? Yes, but why did you terminate contact? Jessica's jaw tightened. She was overstepping boundaries, buying too many gifts, trying to undermine our parenting. I bought birthday presents, I said quietly. That's all. And you called me a lonely old hag desperate for attention. You said I wasn't their real grandmother. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mr. Carter, Denise turned to him. What's your position on this? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I think maybe we overreacted. The kids miss their grandmother. And honestly, she was really helpful with childcare. Marcus, Jessica hissed. What do you feel, Mr. Carter? Not your wife. You? I think the kids should see their grandmother, Marcus said, not looking at Jessica. I think we made a mistake. Sharon pulled out another document. I'd like to submit an additional analysis. Mrs. Carter provided approximately 450 days of childcare over 3 years. At current Atlanta rates for professional childcare, roughly $200 per day, that represents $90,000 in free childcare services. Martin Green objected. Mrs. Carter volunteered. No one forced her. She volunteered because she loved her grandchildren, and was told she was helping her family. Sharon interrupted. Not because she was providing a terminable service. Denise held up her hand. Here's my assessment. Mrs. Carter has a very strong case. 3 years of substantial regular care. Documented requests from the parents. An established relationship with the children. If this goes to trial, I believe a judge will grant some form of visitation. I strongly recommend you reach an agreement today. Jessica stood up. We're not agreeing to anything. This is extortion. It's not extortion, Mrs. Carter. It's Georgia law. Your mother-in-law has legal standing. Then we'll go to trial. She wants to fight, we'll fight. They walked out of mediation. I looked at Sharon. What now? Now we prepare for trial. And Mrs. Carter? We're going to win. While we waited for the trial date, set for 6 weeks out, things got complicated for Jessica in ways she hadn't anticipated. Word spreads fast in certain circles. Jessica's mother Linda heard about the lawsuit from a mutual acquaintance at church. According to Marcus, who was slowly starting to confide in me again through carefully worded text messages, Linda had been furious. You're being sued by Marcus's mother, for grandparent rights? Jessica, didn't Vivian watch those children all the time? She volunteered, Mom, and now you've cut her off completely? After years of free childcare? What's wrong with you? Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of not being cruel to people who help you. Jessica's social circle, other professional Black women, mothers, colleagues started hearing about it too. One of her close friends confronted her at a charity event. Girl, someone told me you called Marcus's mama a lonely old hag at Target. Please tell me that's not true. It's complicated. It's not complicated. Did you say it or not? I was frustrated. That woman helped you for years. I've heard you talk about how much she did for Tyler and Nia. And you cut her off like that. The conversation around Jessica started to shift. People were talking. Did you hear Jessica Carter is being sued by her mother-in-law? I heard she used her for free babysitting for years. Then cut her off. That's cold. At Jessica's law firm, word got around. One of the senior partners mentioned it in passing. I heard you're in family court. Everything okay? It's private. Just saying, fighting your kid's grandmother in court doesn't look great. Especially if she was helping you out. Jessica's reputation was taking hits from multiple directions. Marcus's family, his sister Angela, his cousins, his aunts and uncles were uniformly upset. Angela called Marcus. "What are you doing? How could you let Jessica treat Mom like that?" "It's complicated, Ang." "No, it's not. Mom helped you for years." And Jessica called her terrible names. Now she's suing just to see her own grandchildren. "Marcus, this is messed up." "I know. Then fix it." "I'm trying." The worst part though was watching Tyler and Nia suffer. Marcus told me about this later, and it broke my heart all over again. Tyler at 7 had started asking questions. "Where's Grandma Vivian? Why doesn't she pick us up anymore?" Jessica had given vague answers. "Grandma's busy, honey, but she used to see us all the time. 3 or 4 days a week. Now it's been weeks. Did we do something wrong?" "No, sweetie. It's just, Grandma needs a break." Nia had been more direct. At 5 she didn't understand subtle social dynamics. "I want Grandma. She makes the good mac and cheese. And she reads the princess stories with the voices." "Grandma can't come right now." "Why not? Can we call her?" "No, but I miss her." Nia had started crying. "I want to see Grandma Vivian." Jessica hadn't known how to explain it. How do you tell a 5-year-old that Grandma can't visit because Mommy decided she wasn't part of the family anymore? Tyler's teacher had called with concerns. "Tyler's been withdrawn lately. Not participating in class. He seems sad. Is everything okay at home?" "Everything's fine," Jessica had said. "He keeps mentioning his grandmother. Says he misses her." "Is she ill?" Jessica had no good answer. Marcus had watched his children suffer and finally confronted Jessica. "This is hurting them. Tyler's acting out." Nia cries for Mom. "What are we doing?" "They'll adjust. Kids are resilient. But why make them adjust to losing their grandmother? What's the point?" "The point is that we decide who's in our lives. Not your mother, and not some judge." But Marcus was starting to realize that maybe Jessica didn't get to make that decision alone. The trial was scheduled for a Thursday morning in Fulton County Family Court. I wore my best dress, navy blue, conservative, professional. Sharon had coached me on courtroom demeanor. Speak clearly, answer only what's asked. Stay calm no matter what. The judge was Patricia Williams, a black woman in her late 50s with a reputation for being tough but fair on family matters. Sharon presented our case methodically. She entered into evidence my calendar, showing 3 years of childcare. She entered the text messages and emails from Jessica requesting babysitting. She entered photos of Tyler and Nia at my house, baking cookies, playing in the backyard, reading books, doing crafts. She called me to testify. "Mrs. Carter, can you describe your relationship with your grandchildren?" I took a deep breath. "I love them. I helped raise them from the time they were very small. I picked them up from school or daycare 3 to 4 days a week. I fed them dinner, helped with homework, gave them baths, read them stories. Sometimes they stayed overnight when Marcus and Jessica had to travel." "How long did this arrangement continue?" 3 years, from when Tyler was 4 and Nia was 2 until about 2 months ago." "What happened 2 months ago?" "My daughter-in-law confronted me at Target. She said I wasn't their real grandmother and that I was a lonely old hag desperate for attention. She told me to stop buying gifts for them and to stop existing in their lives." "Had you done anything to provoke this?" "I was buying birthday presents for the twins. That's all." Sharon showed the judge photos from that day. My cart full of carefully selected toys, now entered as evidence because I'd taken a photo before leaving the store. "Mrs. Carter, why do you want visitation?" "Because Tyler and Nia are my grandchildren. They're my late husband Robert's legacy. They need to know where they come from, to know their family. And because they love me and I love them, I don't want them to think I abandoned them." Martin Green cross-examined me. "Mrs. Carter, isn't it true that you were overbearing? Constantly calling?" "I called twice a week to check on the children. I don't consider that constant. Buying excessive gifts? I bought birthday presents and occasional treats. That's what grandmothers do. Trying to control how your son and daughter-in-law raised their children? I never did that. I followed their rules and schedules. I supported their parenting." Jessica testified next. She tried to paint me as intrusive, controlling, boundary violating. Vivian was always inserting herself into our lives, always trying to tell us what to do with our children. We needed space. We asked her politely to back off, and she refused. Sharon's cross-examination was devastating. "Mrs. Carter, you said you asked her politely to back off. According to testimony and witness statements, You called her a lonely old hag, desperate for attention. Is that your definition of polite? I was frustrated. You used your mother-in-law for free childcare for 3 years, then verbally abused her when you decided you didn't need her anymore. Is that accurate? That's not. I didn't use her. You requested childcare 3 to 4 times per week for 3 years. You sent dozens of text messages asking her to pick up your children. You relied on her for overnight care when you traveled. That's documented. What would you call that? Jessica couldn't answer convincingly. Marcus testified, and it was painful to watch. Mr. Carter, what's your relationship with your mother? She's my mom. She raised me. She's a good person. Do you want her to have a relationship with your children? Marcus looked at Jessica, who was glaring at him. Then he looked at the judge. Yes. Honestly, yes. I think I made a mistake. The kids miss her. I miss her. This whole thing got out of hand. What do you mean it got out of hand? My wife and I were fighting about boundaries, and it escalated. I should have defended my mother. I should have stood up for what was right. Instead, I went along with cutting her off, and I regret it. Jessica looked like she wanted to murder him. Judge Williams asked Jessica directly, Mrs. Carter, why did you agree to have your mother-in-law provide all this childcare if you didn't value her relationship with your children? We both worked demanding jobs. We needed help. And when she provided that help for 3 years, did you pay her? No. She's family. So she was family when you needed free childcare, but not family when she wanted to maintain her relationship with her grandchildren. Jessica had no good answer. The judge called a recess to review the evidence and make her decision. When we returned to the courtroom, Judge Williams looked serious. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony in this matter. This is my ruling. Mrs. Vivian Carter has demonstrated through extensive documentation a substantial and ongoing relationship with her grandchildren, Tyler and Nia Carter, age 7 and 5. This relationship was not only permitted by the parents but actively facilitated by them. The respondents requested and received regular childcare from Mrs. Carter 3 to 4 days per week for 3 years. This is not occasional babysitting. This is substantial co-parenting. The children clearly bonded with their grandmother during this time and are now experiencing distress from her sudden absence, as evidenced by school reports and testimony. The respondents' reasons for terminating contact are not compelling. Mrs. Carter was not abusive, dangerous, or harmful to the children. She followed the parents' rules and schedules. Her alleged offense was buying birthday presents and wanting to maintain her relationship with her grandchildren. I find that it is in the best interests of Tyler and Nia Carter to maintain a relationship with their grandmother. Therefore, I am granting the petition for grandparent visitation with the following terms. Mrs. Vivian Carter shall have visitation with Tyler and Nia Carter the first full weekend of every month, from Friday evening at 6 p.m. until Sunday evening at 6 p.m. She shall have access to the children on alternating major holidays, specifically Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, with the schedule to alternate yearly with the parents. She shall have the children for 1 full week during the summer. Dates to be determined with reasonable notice to the parents. This order is effective immediately and is enforceable by contempt of court. Any violation will result in legal consequences for the parents. This court is adjourned. Jessica's face had gone white. Martin Green was already whispering to her about appeals, but she looked shell-shocked. Marcus just looked relieved. I sat there quietly crying while Sharon squeezed my hand. You won, she said softly. You get to be their grandmother again. The first weekend of court-ordered visitation was both wonderful and heartbreaking. Marcus brought Tyler and Nia to my house on Friday evening. Jessica stayed in the car. She wouldn't come to the door, wouldn't speak to me, wouldn't even look at me. But Tyler and Nia burst through my door like they'd been released from prison. Grandma. Nia threw herself at me, wrapping her small arms around my waist. I missed you so much. Tyler was more reserved, but his eyes were shining. Hi, Grandma. Can we make cookies? We can make whatever you want, baby. That weekend, we baked cookies. We played in the backyard. We read stories with funny voices. We made the special mac and cheese that Nia loved. We built an elaborate Lego city that Tyler designed. It felt like coming home. Sunday evening, when Marcus came to pick them up, the kids didn't want to leave. Can we stay longer? Nia begged. Not this time, sweetheart. But you'll see Grandma again next month. That's too long. After they left, I sat in my living room and cried. But this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. I had my grandchildren back. Not because Jessica had decided to be kind. Not because Marcus had finally stood up to her. But because a judge had ruled that my relationship with Tyler and Nia mattered, that I had rights. that they had a right to know their grandmother. Over the next few months, things slowly shifted. Jessica remained furious. She followed the court order because she had to, but she made her resentment clear. She never came to the door when dropping off or picking up the children. She communicated only through terse text messages, but Marcus started to change. He'd come early to pick up the kids and stay to talk. He'd sit on my porch while Tyler and Nia played inside, and we'd have real conversations for the first time in years. "I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it, for not defending you, for letting Jessica treat you that way, for making you go to court just to see your own grandchildren. Why didn't you defend me, Marcus?" At Target or before that, or during all of this, he was quiet for a long time. "Because I've spent my whole marriage trying to keep the peace. Jessica has strong opinions, and I've learned it's easier to just go along to avoid the fight. But that meant letting her hurt people, letting her hurt you. I know. I see that now. I'm working on it. We're in counseling. How is that going?" "Honestly, not great. I don't know if our marriage is going to survive this. And I'm not sure I want it to. The kids are what matter now." "The kids are happier," Marcus admitted. "They come back from your house smiling and talking about all the things you did together. You're good for them, Mom." "I'm sorry I ever let Jessica convince me otherwise." Something else happened in those months after the trial. Other grandmothers started reaching out to me. My friend Margaret told her book club about my case. One of the women there was facing a similar situation. Her daughter-in-law had cut her off from her grandchildren after years of regular babysitting. "Could you talk to Evelyn?" Margaret asked. "She's devastated. She doesn't know she has options." I met Evelyn at a coffee shop. She was 73, a retired teacher recently widowed. She'd been watching her 2 grandchildren 3 days a week for 4 years. Then her son remarried, and the new wife decided Evelyn was too old-fashioned and cut off contact. I showed her my documentation, explained Georgia grandparent visitation law, gave her Sharon Mitchell's contact information. "I didn't know this was possible," Evelyn said, tears in her eyes. "I thought I just had to accept it." "You don't. You have rights. And more importantly, your grandchildren have a right to know you." Evelyn filed her petition. She won. Word spread. More grandmothers reached out. I started keeping a folder of information about grandparent rights, documentation methods, legal resources. I met with them at coffee shops, at my house, at the community center. I shared my story. I connected them with Sharon, who became something of a specialist in grandparent rights cases. In the first year after my trial, I helped 5 grandmothers file for visitation rights. 4 of them won. 18 months after the grocery store confrontation, I was invited to speak at the South Atlanta Community Center's senior group. The topic was grandparents' legal rights and family relationships. I stood in front of about 30 people, mostly Black women in their 60s and 70s, and told my story, not the legal details. The human story, about loving Tyler and Nia. About helping raise them for 3 years. About the joy of being their grandmother. About being called a lonely old hag desperate for attention. About being cut off from the children I loved. About fighting back, not with anger or revenge, but with the law. "I want you to know something," I told them. "You have rights. If you've been a significant part of your grandchildren's lives, if you've provided regular care, if you've built real relationships, you may have legal standing to maintain those relationships. Document everything. Keep calendars, save text messages and emails. Take photos, because if the day comes when someone tries to cut you off, you'll have proof of what you meant to those children." I was told I wasn't a real grandmother, that I should stop existing in their lives. But I fought back. I went to court. I presented evidence, and a judge ruled that I had the right to be in Tyler and Nia's lives. Not because of blood, not because of obligation, but because I'd earned that relationship through 3 years of love and care. A woman in the front row raised her hand. "I'm in the exact same situation. My daughter-in-law cut me off 6 months ago after I'd been watching my grandson since he was a baby. Can I really sue for visitation?" "You can petition the court, and if you have documentation of substantial care over time, you have a strong case." After my talk, a line formed. 15 women wanting to share their stories, ask questions, get information. I stayed for 3 hours talking to each of them, sharing resources, offering hope. This became my new purpose. Helping grandmothers understand their rights, connecting them with legal resources, supporting them through the process. I started a monthly support group at the community center. Grandparents United, we called it. We met to share stories, discuss legal strategies, support each other emotionally. Some of the women filed petitions. Some reached settlements with their adult children before going to court. Some decided not to pursue legal action but felt empowered just knowing they had options. All of them were grateful to know they weren't alone. 2 years after the trial, Jessica and Marcus divorced. Marcus told me it had been coming for a while. The counseling hadn't worked. The resentment on both sides had grown too deep. She never forgave me for testifying in your favor, Marcus said. She felt betrayed, and honestly I couldn't get past how she'd treated you. It showed me a side of her I didn't like. The divorce was difficult, especially the custody arrangements. Jessica wanted primary custody. Marcus wanted 50-50. They ended up with a schedule where the kids alternated weeks between parents, and the court order for my visitation remained in place. Regardless of who had custody that week, I saw Tyler and Nia the first weekend of every month. I had them for alternating holidays. I got my week every summer. It wasn't as much time as I'd had during those 3 years of regular childcare, but it was guaranteed, protected by law. Jessica couldn't take it away, no matter how much she wanted to. Tyler was 9 now. Nia was 7. They were growing up so fast. Tyler told me about school, about his friends, about the books he was reading. He was so smart, so thoughtful. He reminded me of Robert. Nia was creative and dramatic. She wrote stories and put on plays in my living room. She decided she wanted to be an actress when she grew up. They asked questions sometimes about the time when they didn't see me. "Grandma, why did we stop visiting you for a while?" Tyler asked one Saturday morning while we were making pancakes. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, honey. Your mom and I had a disagreement. Was it bad? It was painful, but it got resolved. And now we have our special weekends together." "I'm glad," Tyler said simply. "I like our weekends." "Me too, baby. Me too." One Sunday evening, Marcus came early to pick up the kids. We sat on my porch while Tyler and Nia finished a movie inside. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I'm seeing someone. Her name is Angela. She's a teacher. She's really great. I'm happy for you, sweetheart. She wants to meet you, and the kids. But I wanted to make sure you were okay with it first." "Why wouldn't I be okay with it?" "Because of everything that happened with Jessica. I don't want you to think I'm just replacing her and moving on without considering your feelings." I took his hand. "Marcus, you're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to move on. You deserve someone who treats you well and respects your family. Angela knows about what happened." I told her everything. How Jessica treated you, the lawsuit, the court order. She was actually impressed that you fought back. She sounds smart. She wants to meet you. Would that be okay? Maybe she could come to one of our porch talks sometime? I'd like that. 2 weeks later, Angela came with Marcus to pick up the kids. She was a warm, friendly woman in her late 30s with an easy smile and genuine kindness in her eyes. "Mrs. Carter, it's so nice to meet you. Marcus talks about you all the time. Call me Vivian, please. And it's nice to meet you too." Tyler and Nia came running out. "Miss Angela?" They clearly already knew and liked her. We talked for a while on the porch. Angela was a third-grade teacher, loved working with kids, had a good relationship with her own parents and siblings. She asked respectful questions about my work with the grandparents support group. "What you're doing is amazing," she said. "Helping other grandparents understand their rights. That's real advocacy work." After they left, I sat on my porch feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that Marcus would be happy with someone who valued family. Hope that Tyler and Nia would grow up seeing healthy relationships. Hope that maybe eventually our family could heal. I'm Vivian Carter. I'm 73 years old now. 2.5 years ago, my daughter-in-law cornered me at a grocery store and hissed, "Stop buying gifts for my children. You're not their real grandmother. You're just a lonely old hag desperate for attention." She grabbed the toys from my cart. My son was waiting in the car. He didn't defend me. He didn't stand up for me. He just agreed that maybe I was too involved. I left my cart there in the middle of Target, walked out with my dignity in shreds, and my heart broken. I went home and looked at 3 years of documentation, 3 years of calendar entries showing regular childcare, 3 years of text messages and emails from Jessica asking me to watch the kids, 3 years of photos of Tyler and Nia, at my house, doing crafts and baking cookies and living their lives with me as a central part of it. I realized something. Those weren't occasional babysitting favors. That was a substantial caregiving relationship, and in the state of Georgia that meant I had legal rights. 1 week after that grocery store confrontation, I filed a petition for court-ordered grandparent visitation. Jessica was furious. She fought it. She hired an expensive lawyer. She argued parental rights and authority. But I had documentation, I had evidence. I had 3 years of proof that I'd been a significant part of my grandchildren's lives with the parents' full knowledge and consent. The judge ruled in my favor. I was granted 1 weekend per month, alternating holidays and a week in the summer, court-ordered, legally enforceable. Jessica couldn't take it away, no matter how much she wanted to. Now 2.5 years later, I see Tyler and Mia regularly. They're growing up before my eyes. Tyler's 9, Mia's 7. They're smart and funny and loving. They know their grandmother loves them. Marcus and I have rebuilt our relationship. He divorced Jessica. He's found someone kinder, someone who values family. And I've found a new purpose, helping other grandparents who are going through what I went through. I run a support group. I give talks at community centers. I connect grandmothers with legal resources. I share my documentation methods. In the past 2 years, I've helped 15 grandmothers file for visitation rights. 12 of them won, because we're not lonely old hags desperate for attention. We're grandmothers who built real relationships with our grandchildren, who provided care and love and stability for years. And when we were cast aside, we fought back, not with anger, not with revenge, with the law, because in Georgia and in many other states, grandparents have rights. If you've been a significant part of your grandchildren's lives, if that relationship was facilitated by the parents, if you can document substantial care, you have legal standing. I learned that the hard way, but now I teach it to others. Jessica will never forgive me for taking her to court. She still won't speak to me. She drops off and picks up the kids without a word. But I don't need her forgiveness. I have Tyler and Nia. I have my monthly weekends and my holiday visits and my summer week. I have the court order that says I'm their grandmother, regardless of what Jessica thinks. And I have the satisfaction of knowing that when someone tried to erase me from my grandchildren's lives, I didn't just accept it. I fought back, and I won. I'm Vivian Carter. I'm not a lonely old hag. I'm a grandmother with rights. And I'll never forget that again.